The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence here on the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. We are back for another week. This is episode number 84 of the Hard Rock Empire and episode number 187 of the Nerdcast Empire as we continue to roll on to bring you the best rock and heavy metal each and every week. And this week we'll be talking about the best new releases from September the 5th as we are on to the month of September, just as the month of September actually comes to an end. But got some really good music this week. We've got a couple of releases we'll be talking about kind of separately, some bigger releases that we'll get to, and we've got some news headlines as well. We've got some cool stuff in the vault today, and then, of course, our Power Trio, our question of the week as well, that we will have for you at the end of the program. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Good to be in September as far as the new music goes. Kind of a big week for major releases, or what I would deem to be major releases. And quite a bit of variety as far as the lesser-known bands, I suppose. But, yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and the plan originally today, as we mentioned last week on the podcast, was to start the program today with a review of a concert that we had planned to attend last night.
They did not play any of the songs I wanted to hear.
They did not. We were planning on seeing Symphony X and Sonata Arctica. The concert tour for those guys was a little bit cursed. Sonata Arctica was dealing with the flu for 2 or 3 days, had to cancel some shows. Tony Kakko, of course, the lead singer, he was the one that was probably the most sick. And, of course, when your singer can't sing, you can't perform. Turns out he got better by yesterday. Looked like it was going to be good news. And then Symphony X's tour bus broke down, so the show got canceled. And we found out about it on the other side of Columbus. We were about an hour and a half away from the venue in Cleveland, and thankfully Mike checked his phone and saw that it was canceled, so we had dinner and turned around and drove back 2 hours home. So obviously not what we had hoped for. I thought it was pretty cruel. I was watching YouTube last night before I went to bed and flipping through shorts, and a clip of the concert from Milwaukee popped up in my feed, so I got to hear a little bit of Symphony X from Milwaukee. Nice. It's like awesome. Like, thank you for rubbing that in, that I didn't get a chance to get to see that show. But a bummer for sure. We hopefully we'll get a chance to see both of those bands again in the future. But always disappointing when there's a cancellation at the last minute.
Yeah, I just think, what's the only thing possibly worse than going to Cleveland? Your bus breaking down going to Cleveland. You want to get in and get out. And on the Sonata Arctica side, I can't imagine being sick through all these cities in the United States and then you magically get better only to end up in Cleveland. Man, that is unfortunate. It sounds like they had fun at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at the very least, but, I'm hoping maybe they'll come around again. Maybe Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville, Fort Wayne, name it.
Fort Wayne might be about the same drive, actually. But, it's certainly disappointing, and we certainly wish them the best. I know Symphony X had one more show that they were doing separate of Sonata Arctica, which was in New Jersey, and I think they were still kind of trying to figure out whether they were going to be able to get there with their gear. So, I was looking forward to seeing them for the first time. Obviously, Sonata Arctica we've seen on several occasions. We know Sonata Arctica is getting ready to embark on their 30th anniversary tour, which obviously no dates here in the States yet. Certainly hope that they will come back through the U.S. at some point in that tour. But again, it's unfortunate. It's one of those things that happens. We've both been pretty fortunate not to have that happen very often, as many concerts as we've seen over the years. So, it's kind of one of those bad luck situations. Chris pointing out that you can actually perform if you're Motley Crue. True. I don't think Sonata Arctica is going to be playing to a backing track probably anytime soon. That would be pretty disappointing, to be honest. But so obviously we didn't get to do that, so we don't get to review that concert that we didn't get to see. We can tell you about Giordano's Pizza because that was, as it turned out, a 2-hour trip to go get pizza. But you'll have that from time to. It was really good pizza. So
I do have to mention again, we've talked about Sonic Temple numerous times already, kind of with the bands being announced for 2026. 5 stages. Can we get some sort of power metal stage?
Yes.
I mean, Symphony X would fit in perfectly. Sonata Arctica, book Halloween. I mean, my God, so many just great bands that you have the capacity. I don't know if the numbers make sense, but if so, let's make it happen.
I mean, in 5 stages, if you can't make that make sense, I'm not sure what's going on. So we'll see. Obviously, more announcements coming this week from Sonic Temple, so we'll keep our eyes open to see what that is, and we'll let you know next week what they have announced. Just one quick news item, and really nothing very heavy on the news front this week, but did want to mention news that is news, but then also we kind of have an addendum to this news item. It is the news that Megadeth's new single, Tipping Point, is scheduled to be released this week, and a teaser of that new single. I don't know why it wanted me to cheer. That was interesting. But yeah, I was trying to just post a link. I can't cheer, as it turns out. The teaser for the song has already come out. It's online. But in addition to that, evidently the entire song ended up online somehow. A leak here or there. But, obviously really, really excited to hear what this new album is going to sound like. I know you've had a chance to check out. I don't know if you had just the teaser or actually the whole song that was out there, but just your initial thoughts on what you've heard so far.
Yeah, I did not hear the full song, unfortunately. I was looking to see exactly where that was leaked to. I can't remember the actual story around that, but yeah, I did not hear the whole thing. I've only heard the snippet that they've released through their official social media. Sounds like Megadeth. It's what I would expect. I'm kind of curious to learn more about the album. Like, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead was good. Dystopia was great. I just, knowing that it's kind of their last final, last hurrah as far as new music goes, I'm expecting something big, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be both a good album and a great tour that will support that album. Again, we'll have updates and on dates when those all get finalized and let you know. Certainly would like to see them again at least one more time before they hang it up.
I did see that Chris Rakestraw is going to be producing the album. He produced Dystopia and The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, or at least working on production for those albums. Anyone that hasn't listened to relatively new Megadeth, check out Dystopia, because that is just, to me, that stands right up there with their best albums of all time. Sick, the Dying, and the Dead was strong as well, but to me, Dystopia, as far as modern Megadeth goes, you can't really do much better than that.
Yeah, if they can come anywhere near that with this new release, I think fans will be really pleased with that.
Yeah.
So, and again, we'll let you know as more songs come out and as we get closer to album release date, and obviously when it comes out, we'll be talking about it for sure here on the podcast. Good time to remind you, check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. Of course, you can listen to previous episodes of the Nerdcast Empire. You can also do that on our YouTube page, where we have them archived, minus whatever songs happen to get muted. They're up on our Twitch page. I think they stay for 30 days. That might be different now that we are affiliate status. But before, it was like a 30-day window where VODs would stay up, so you can check them out there as well. Certainly, again, we are an affiliate on Twitch. Again, as I've said before, if you do nothing but come by and listen to the podcast, comment on our social media, share our posts, we would really appreciate that. Of course, you do get a Prime subscription every month for free as part of your Prime membership. If you want to just hit us with that Prime subscription, we would appreciate that as well. And again, that doesn't cost you anything. You get that if you are a Prime member each and every month. You do have to go in and renew it every month, but we certainly appreciate the support. But we're just happy to have you here, whether it's live or on the VOD. It is time to get to the new music, and before we get to the bands that we picked, we're going to be talking about a couple of other releases. But before we do that, it's probably a good time to just go ahead and go through the whole spiel about how all this takes place. Of course, Mike, each and every week, will go through and come up with a big list based on a couple of different sources of all the new albums that are going to be released in rock and metal for a given date. The given date this time is September the 5th. He will go through and create a YouTube playlist, which is currently being pasted in both chats, that includes a track off of all of the ones he can find on YouTube. And then he goes through and will review them all, give them a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle type review system, and then we'll get into them a little bit deeper. At the end of the week, we end up each picking 2 new releases to talk about on the podcast, and that's what we will do today. Again, the music of September the 5th. And generally, we do stay away from like the really big releases. We talk about them, obviously, but soon to come, Chris's Rando Wheel of Pain. Yes, that will definitely be something we're looking forward to. I'm the thought process behind that, since Chris mentioned it in the chat, is that I would take all of the releases in a given week that Mike has given the thumbs. I say thumbs down. It's just something that Mike has deemed
not for me.
Not for Mike. It doesn't mean this stuff is bad.
There's an audience for everything.
There absolutely. And, I'm sure if I went through and rated every single album, I imagine Mike's taste and my taste would overlap considerably. There might be one or two that he would score kind of thumbs in the middle that maybe I would be thumbs down or whatever. But just for your simple thinking process of how this goes, we're going to take the ones that Mike gives a red score to on his spreadsheet, and we'll put them on a giant click wheel, and then Chris is going to spin that wheel and choose two of those releases to review and give honest opinions about. And the thing is, he might like them. We don't know. He might think they're fine. He might think they're not fine. It's just one of those things. Music is subjective. So definitely coming soon. We're going to get that to a regular thing, and it'll be something that will definitely bring a different dimension to our reviews. But having said all that, we tend to stay away from the really big releases or things like that. And Mike's posted on there. There's...
First off, the album Truth Paste
is a great name. It's just a shame it was not necessarily for us.
It's something.
And that's the thing, and that's another thing we would like to maybe go back and spotlight at the end of the year is there's some pretty outstanding album art. There's some pretty outstanding names of albums, band names that we've come across throughout the year. Give these bands a lot of credit for some creativity. We just hope that when we come across something like Truth Paste, that it's actually really good and we can spotlight it on the podcast other than just to put it in the chat. And
you're hoping it's like the dinosaur band we had months ago.
Yes.
Whose name I don't remember, but all their songs were ridiculous play on words involving the names of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I do remember the picture of that, but I don't remember the name of the band. I know you'll find it at some point, but
maybe,
possibly, maybe not on this podcast. We'll find it at some point. But having said that, I've taken the long way to get around to the fact that there were a couple of releases this week that we won't be necessarily spotlighting, but we did want to mention because they're bands that are obviously, or bands or acts, I guess in one case, that are right up our alley. You definitely need to check them out. They have our highest recommendation, but again, because they're kind of more mainstream acts, we didn't necessarily want to spend a slot on them on the podcast. So Mike, did you find the dinosaur act? Because the look on your face makes it look like you might have found it already.
Yeah. There it is, Nucleosaurus Rex.
Yes, Operation Party Destroy. Yeah, that's it. So.
With such bangers as Brachioplutonium, Pterodactyl, Pteroreactyl. I misread that. Triceratoxic.
Yeah, Triceratoxic was one we listened to.
That was a good one. Yeah. And Velosa Radioactive.
That's fantastic, for sure. Yeah, there are some good ones out there that actually turn out to be all right, too. But I know a couple acts we wanted to spotlight here at the beginning. So Mike, I'll let you get a chance to introduce those at this time.
Yeah, there were quite a few what I would consider to be known acts that have released albums on the 5th. Bless the Fall with their newest album, Gallows. Legendary thrash metal band Dark Angel releasing their next album, Extinction Level Event. They go back as far as 1981. They've been around a long time. Dizzy Reed, the former keyboardist of Guns N' Roses, releasing Rock and Roll Chose Me. That was a good song when I heard of it. Glenn Hughes, rock icon, formerly of Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, Hughes Turner Project, currently with Black Country Communion. He has his new album, Chosen. Incredible German power metal band, Primal Fear, formed by Ralph Sheepers and Matt Sinner. Currently also with Magnus Carlsen in their group.
Of course they do.
Their newest album, Domination, what I've heard of it so far is fantastic.
I can't wait to listen to that.
I'd kind of forgotten that Ralph Sheepers was actually the original vocalist for Gamma Ray when it started up.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that dude's got a tremendous voice. And finally, as far as the big new releases, the legendary Stan Bush.
Yeah.
He has a new album, Born for Battle. If you've watched movies in the 80s, good movies, you've probably run into songs of his. For me in my childhood, The Touch and Dare from Transformers 1986, greatest animated movie of all time. He actually did a song for the American voice dub of Sailor Moon back in the day, which I did not realize.
Well, why not?
Yeah. He did several songs for the Kickboxer movie.
Yeah.
And, of course, one of the best, worst movies of all time, Bloodsport. He did kind of the main theme of that, Fight to Survive. Thing. Yeah, great song. Dude's a legend, and if you've never, floored it in your car listening to Dare, then I'm sorry for you, but, yeah, that's great. On the other hand, re-releases and box sets, we do have Slipknot celebrating their 25th anniversary of their self-titled debut with Blow Out the Budget box set. There was the 6 LP Blood Splatter set. It is sold out. I think it was like $250, give or take. There are a couple other options if you want to go that route. There's a 2 CD set for $25, a citrus-colored 2 LP set for $45, and just the 2 LP set for $40. But, yeah, if you didn't feel old, the self-titled Slipknot is celebrating his 25th anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Transformers movie makes you feel old enough. From 1986, which will be 40 years next year. So, yeah, that's fun. Bloodsport has to be at the top of the list of the best, worst movies of all time, right? Best movies.
I don't like remakes, but why hasn't that been remade?
I just don't know if you can. Sometimes these movies that are so campy, I just don't know if you can honestly recreate it, because you have to pick a main actor who's so full of himself that he thinks it's the most important role he's ever played, and yet it's not. And it's just I don't know how you, because
see, what they should have done is that point in time when WWE was like, hey, we're going to make movies, and they had the horror movie with Kane, they should have bought the rights to Bloodsport, had RVD as the main character, and Braun Strowman as his sidekick.
Yes.
That would have been perfect casting.
Yeah, honestly, that would have been pretty good. That might have. I think WWE level movie is probably right at the level of campiness that you're looking for a Bloodsport remake. So Strowman's still around. It's not too late. I don't know about RVD.
It's a commercial for some USA show he's going to be on, some sort of eating show.
Yeah, so it's still possible. Somebody get on that. But yeah, Stan Bush obviously legendary, and I definitely need to check out the Primal Fear.
And Corey Taylor of Slipknot, he's legendary.
Of course, he is, absolutely.
He can cover Fight to Survive for the new Bloodsport.
We're gonna get to cover songs here when we get to the Power Trio a little bit later on, but it's time to get to the stuff we did pick this week. And again, I thought it was a really good week. I thought the good stuff this week was unique in a way that I don't know that we've had for a few weeks, sometimes we pick unique stuff when it's there's nothing else to pick, so we kind of go outside the box. This week I felt like the really good stuff was also really unique, which really made for an interesting week. But it is time now to get to Mike's picks. He will lead us off as always. Mike, what do you have for us first?
We are heading off to Sweden, which,
of course,
we tend to go to fairly regularly. But it's not an AOR melodic hard rock band necessarily. This is a heavy metal band, power metal even to some degree. It's their fourth full-length studio album. They are Ambush, and this album is titled Evil in All Dimensions.
Yeah, they were really good. It was definitely one of those ones that was right there for me to consider to pick as well. I need to get back and listen to the rest of this album, but what I've heard so far is really excellent.
Yeah, very solid stuff. The band is made up of Linus Fritzen on drums, Olaf Ingvist on guitars, Oscar Jakobsen on vocals, Carl Dotzik on guitars, and Oscar Anderson on bass. For the playlist, I pulled the music video for the title track, Evil in All Dimensions. Always a fan when bands put effort into music videos, and this is no different. They have this really fun video where it's this guy kind of meandering through this haunted house, running into all these spooky people, while the band is in another room playing live, essentially. It's just the kind of thing that more bands need to do, and we've talked about it before, but check it out because it's really cool. Angry Metal Guy touches on the album in his review, talking about how adeptly these guys kind of do that throwback metal sound. He compares Oscar Jakobsen to Don Dokken and Joey Tempest from Europe. So not a bad comparison. And I kind of see it the same way. The guy has as good of a voice as any of those other Swedish bands we run into. This guy could be singing any kind of rock music and he would make it work. I kind of compare it not in style, but in theme to kind of how Joey Belladonna gives Anthrax that different sound. I think this guy kind of does the same thing to what's essentially a traditional metal band, and I think they're better off for it for sure. Standout tracks on the album include Maskarovka, The Night I Took Your Life, The Reaper, Heavy Metal Brethren, and the title track, which we're going to take a listen to now, Evil in All Dimensions.
Check these guys out. This is Ambush with their new release, Evil in All Dimensions. As Mike said, this is the title track. It is also the opening track on this album, Evil in All Dimensions. Let's listen to a little bit of this now. Yeah, I mean, this is just really good stuff. And again, I really want to get back and listen to the whole album, but just vocals are amazing. Just really carries the song. And then, of course, you come back in with the guitars there after the vocals wrap up in the chorus. And it's just a really just powerful sound, which is exactly what you would expect out of a band like this.
Yeah, and watching the video, I can't help but feel like the set for that video is a set that we would have seen in like a King Diamond video, which then made me think, man, it'd be cool if these guys covered like some King Diamond tracks. I think his voice would definitely give it a different thing, but musically they're kind of in that same vein, so I think it'd work really well.
Yeah, would love to see that for sure, but definitely check out Ambush. Really good stuff from them. Their new release out on September the 5th. As always, you have 2 picks each and every week. What do you have for pick number 2?
Yeah, so another place I tend to frequent fairly often, a band from Finland. They are a melodic death metal band. This is their 9th album. They are Before the Dawn, and the album is Cold Flare Eternal.
Yeah, it feels like Scandinavia. We spend a lot of time there on the podcast, but for good reason. This is another really good-sounding band, another one off the playlist that definitely got my attention right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were a couple different bands that had a similar thing going on as these guys, but I feel like they had the strongest overall product. This band started in 1999 as a solo project for Thomas Saukkonen. In 2013, he ended all of his projects and created the band Wolfheart, which kind of put these guys on ice. He then revived the band back in 2021, and here we are today. When I first listened to the band, this is the first time I've listened to the band, so I'm not really sure like what their sound was prior to this, and even when they got back together in 2021, I don't really have knowledge of their earlier work. Black Angels Promotions reviewed the album and pointed out that they felt that this album was kind of them locking into what their second life as a band is about. They mentioned their prior album in 2023 felt like a triumphant reintroduction, but this is them kind of really finding their footing, so it would be interesting to check out some of their earlier stuff. My enjoyment from the album is kind of from the same place as my enjoyment of a band like Scar Symmetry. Big fan of metal that can do the multi-vocal style, and these guys kind of do the harsh and the clean vocals in a very similar way. They're not necessarily as progressive or technical in their metal as like Per Nilsson and Scar Symmetry, but the way the dual vocal style works with these guys, it's still more than enough to make me want to pick them. I got more mileage out of the first half of the album than the second, but again, that kind of goes back to the matter of preference. I think other people, if you tend to lean more into the harsh vocals, the back half of the album might be more for you. I like my blend to be about 50-50 at the very least. Death metal isn't normally my thing, but there are a handful of bands, usually Scandinavian, who I don't know what it is up there, but they have a way to just make everything melodic. They can have some of the harshest sounding vocals, and whether it be through the music or by weaving in cleaner vocals, they make it sound musical, and these guys are no different. Standout tracks on the album include Fatal Design, Stellar Effect, Flame Eternal, Destination, and the track that I picked to listen to, As Above, So Below.
Check these guys out. It's Before the Dawn with their new release, Cold Flare Eternal. This is the 3rd track off of that album, As Above, So Below. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, the vocals obviously blended really well there, and the harsh vocals kind of almost hidden in the background. The sound out of the chorus was interesting. It almost felt a little atmospheric rather than maybe your traditional metal coming out of there, which again, that was kind of the running theme this week out of the good music, is that it was all a little bit different. There really wasn't that one-to-one comparison of these guys do it exactly like this band does it. Like there's little bits and pieces of kind of what different bands are doing that they've kind of brought in here and made their own, but really intriguing sound, and definitely want to check out more of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to the harsh vocals in the album, like while I'm not always a huge fan of them, I feel like that style of the harsh vocals, almost that deep guttural sound, I prefer that over the higher end like screaming vocals, which you tend to find more in like post-hardcore and metalcore bands. I would prefer the growls, I suppose, blended with the clean. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it blends better with the clean vocals than the higher pitch. I feel like the higher pitch is kind of working the same register typically as your power metal vocal type sound. So like if you have them both, they kind of interfere with each other. This, like I said, it almost felt like some sort of interesting harmony instead, because you had the low end and the high end. And I'm sure for whoever mixed this, they appreciate that as well, because it kind of allows them to give each set of vocals its own space, which when you're talking about instruments in a mix, you want everything to have its own space on the spectrum so you don't have it kind of interfering and crossing out different parts. So I would think from a technical standpoint, this would be a lot easier to mix and master than something like you said, where you have somebody at that higher range level.
Yeah, I would guess you're probably right.
And it sounds better, honestly, just to our ears. But again, subjective. But really enjoyed this, and definitely want to check out more from Before the Dawn, their new release out on September the 5th. I have 2 releases as well. We're going to talk about a couple really interesting bands, a couple of bands that have been around a while that have new releases this week, and we are going to check in with our friends at Frontiers Records for number 1. This is a British rock band that was formed in 1984. This is FM with their new album, Brotherhood. This is their 15th studio album. These guys have been at it for a while. Should be noted that they should not be confused with the Canadian progressive rock band FM. In fact, this band sometimes noted as FM UK over here, just to differentiate. According to Google, they should also not be confused with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, because when you look up FM Brotherhood, guess what comes up? Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That is not these guys. These guys are Steve Overland on vocals and guitars, Merv Goldsworthy on bass, Pete Jupp on drums, Jim Davis on keyboards, and Jim Kirkpatrick on guitars. This is AOR technically, but it is on the AOR spectrum. It definitely leans more towards 70s and 80s rock. The Frontiers release actually compared the first track on the album to the Doobie Brothers. I also felt like Fabulous Thunderbirds vibes from some of the tracks as well. I think the fact that they've gone this route has made this release stand out from a lot of the other AOR releases you get from Frontiers Records. On top of everything, it's just a really good album, and these guys sound as good as ever, which is fantastic. I think fans of these guys likely picked this up the day it came out, but for these guys to be doing it as long as they have, they just crossed the 40-year mark last year. They're still putting out awesome new music, and if you're a fan of them, definitely need to get out and see these guys live, because they are still rocking all these years later. Standout tracks include Do You Mean It, Coming For You, Just Walk Away, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast, Living on the Run. This is FM with their new release, Brotherhood. This is the second track off of this album, Living on the Run. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
What you gonna do? What you gonna say when I take it away? Oh, maybe you can stop and find a better way. You're just throwing your life away when you're living on the run. Tell me, can you go out in the shadows till the break of day? You're just throwing your life away when you're living on the run. They started stealing.
But yeah, just a very classic rock type sound. Overall, it was just a really enjoyable listen. Again, classic rock without sounding dated in any way. Really enjoyed the new release from FM. Mike, your thoughts on FM?
Yeah, I really like this. sometimes with Frontiers bands, you run the risk of them just kind of feeling like a very similar recreation of the same AOR band over and over again. But these guys definitely have something unique in their sound, and I think part of it is kind of the harmonies they use in their vocals. But yeah, I'm all for any variety when we're talking Frontiers bands.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I thought this was definitely different, which really made it stand out even more. So, and it was really good as well. So definitely check out FM, their new release out on September the 5th. As always, I have 2 picks each and every week, and we are moving on now to maybe a really interesting, maybe one of the more interesting releases this week. I thought of all the good music, this one was definitely a little bit out there. This was a Norwegian progressive metal band. This is Green Carnation with A Dark Poem, Part 1, The Shores of Melancholia. This group was founded in 1990. Like I said, they've been around for a while. This is their 7th studio album, plus they also have 1 EP. And this is the first album of a planned trilogy of albums titled A Dark Poem. This band features, and I'm going to apologize in advance for messing up Norwegian names, but Jedel Nordhus on vocals, Terje Vik which is in parentheses as Chort, on guitars, Bjorn Berserk Harstad on guitars, Stein Roger Sordal on bass, additional guitars and keyboards, Andre Kirkesola on keyboards, and Jonathan Perez, we'll throw him in there, on drums. This band is so interesting to me, and I think when you listen to this album, this kind of makes sense. According to their Wikipedia page, throughout their initial run, their style of music continuously changed on every release one by one. From straightforward death metal in their demo, to death doom, then a progressive doom metal sound, to an atmospheric gothic metal sound, to a melancholic hard rock sound, and in 2006, went as far as to release an entirely acoustic album, Acoustic Verses. So these guys have been all over the spectrum, and honestly, you can tell when you listen to this album, even though this is definitely much more kind of straight ahead progressive rock, there are some elements of those other things in there, including the song The Slave That You Are, which has harsh vocals in it, and it's very much 50-50 balance, as Mike talked about, kind of that ideal balance, but it starts out with those harsh vocals that really kind of catch you off guard when you've listened to the first 3 tracks, and there's none of that. And then they pivot right back to The Shores of Melancholia, the next track, which sounds like a progressive rock song. So incredibly talented, and the fact that they're able to change these styles and mix this all in and do it so well, there's almost certainly something for everybody on this release. I thought it was really excellent, and I'm really excited to hear their next 2 pieces of this trilogy, because if they're anything like this one, they're really, really good. Standout tracks, again, it's only 6 tracks, so I encourage you to check them all out, but if you had to narrow it down, the tracks are Me, My Enemy, The Slave That You Are, The Shores of Melancholia, and the song we're going to listen to on the podcast, In Your Paradise. Let's check these guys out now. This is Green Carnation with their new release, A Dark Poem, Part 1, The Shores of Melancholia. This is the 2nd track off of this album, In Your Paradise. Let's listen to a little bit of this now. Yeah, just a really interesting release from these guys. We listened to the track actually yesterday on the way back from our failed concert trip, and I immediately just like, wow, this is different. I got to hear all of this, and I was not disappointed. And this was really good and really different, and I'm excited to see what this band continues to do as they move forward. Mike, your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, just based on the playlist track, I had a feeling these guys were going to be onto something special, so I definitely need to listen to the whole thing now. But even beyond that, when you think of just kind of pivoting with every release. It's like you're slowly collecting infinity stones to eventually be able to release this epic, progressive, multi-part opus. Like you had to first get through the death and the doom, and here you are. I just wonder what they're gonna be by part 3. Like, is it gonna be like techno bluegrass, or if that doesn't make you want to like jump in now just to see where they're heading on this trip, that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I was blown away by these guys. I'm super excited for the next 2 parts of this. I will be anxiously awaiting those releases. I'm not sure when they're coming out. I did not see them in a quick search, but
things move slow in Melancholia.
For sure. But big time thumbs up for Green Carnation. One of the most interesting and enjoyable things I've listened to all year. Their new album, definitely check it out. If you're looking for something different, I think you're going to find something there.
Jump on their Bandcamp and just look at the cover art to the album. Like, if that doesn't already make you think, all right, this is going to be something unique, it's wild looking.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for these guys. Definitely looking forward to checking these guys out. That takes care of our new music. An interesting week this week. I thought it was really, really good and really, really different, which I love. It's time to get into the vault, where Mike and I will each give you a classic album you need to check out. Mike is continuing his journey around the world, spanning the globe to bring you a constant variety of music, in this case, in this wide world of the vault, I guess.
Yeah, wide world of rock.
Yeah, so we have had some interesting stops already, and last week you, of course, spun the wheel at the end of the show, and we found out you were going to a very unique place, and one that was maybe there were more options, but maybe harder to find. And if for those who didn't catch last week's episode, that statement will make more sense when you hear where Mike had to go this week. But let's find out what you were able to find in the vault this week.
Yeah, this week was kind of an adventure. I've had some challenges early on as far as what country I've drawn. Let's see, the first one, where did we go the first time around? Namibia, and there were like 3 or 4 options. The second week, Israel, there were a little more. Uganda was a bit of a challenge as well. But it's okay, guys, because this week I am headed to Vietnam.
Yes.
You got to think a lot of Asian countries have a wide variety of music out there. Maybe I'll be okay. And looking at the Metal Archive listing, there were 71 bands listed being from Vietnam. So I'm like, all right, we're in there. Of those, 42 were listed as active. 3 with power metal in their listing, 9 with thrash, 4 with symphonic, 31 death metal, and 20 black metal. So definitely some of the more extreme metal genres are stronger there. I don't know if that's just because of the Metal Archives maybe lending itself more to those styles of metal, or if that's just the reality of the heavy music scene in Vietnam. I didn't really consider it at the time, but a lot of this stuff is difficult to locate, at least the bands I was searching for. And I don't know if that's just a matter of when you're talking about the style of government there in Vietnam, maybe that music doesn't get out to your mainstream, your YouTube musics, like in any official capacity. I don't know. But the first band I was going to go with, I ended up settling back on because the other 2 I'd tried after that just were a strikeout. That being said, the band I went with, I ended up going with a live DVD of theirs because not a whole lot out there as far as physical CDs or streaming options for their CDs. But I went with the band UnlimiteD and their live concert from 2009 titled Unlimited Symphony.
Something I will do real quick as you get ready to describe this, since I found it. There is actually a Spotify playlist with this album, this
nice.
live CD, DVD, whatever it ended up being. So if you're on Spotify and you want to check out this release, you can actually go on over there and find out about these guys, because it's there's a lot of that music probably doesn't get out from there. So when you find one that does, like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and beyond that, I actually found the Vietnamese Wikipedia page for the band, so I actually was able to get a little information about these guys, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
The band themselves, they're from Ho Chi Minh City. They started in 2003, and they're still active despite their last album listing on both Wikipedia and the Metal Archives was from 2013. It was their EP Unlimited Christmas, which that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, their kind of music would do well with a Christmas album, I'm sure. The concert itself seemed like a really big deal. It was really, really fun to watch. On their Vietnamese Wikipedia page, it mentions that they have won the National Light Band Festival in 2007, Super Band. And they competed in the Rock Storm competitions of 2007 and 2012. They were also ranked, they were once ranked number 2 in the top 10 famous rock bands in Vietnam by MTV Vietnam. So these guys are a big deal, apparently. The funny thing about it is on the Wikipedia page, it classified them as melodic death metal, progressive metal, and power metal. But I'm watching this DVD, and it's like just very just symphonic power metal, like almost operatic vocals at times. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And I even noted as I'm watching it, I'm like, I haven't heard much death metal, but definitely power and progressive. What further caught my attention when I saw the track list for their performance is they actually covered some Western songs. Wings of Destiny from Rhapsody, Phantom of the Opera, the Andrew Lloyd Webber song, and The Final Countdown from Europe. So as I'm getting there, they closed the show with The Final Countdown, and going back to what Wikipedia said about the band, I wasn't expecting their cover of Final Countdown to be a death metal cover of Final Countdown. You had this dude just going full, like, epic, clean vocals. I mean, he's singing Rhapsody songs. He gets to Final Countdown, and it's all death metal. I'm like, that's amazing. This is blowing my mind. Definitely, there's a language gap on their original songs. I did not understand any of it, but they were really good. For a group that I'd never heard of, from a country I've never heard of bands from, definitely worth checking out sometime. So if you ever are interested in something different, look up Unlimited and their DVD, Unlimited Symphony.
Yeah, I would recommend looking up the DVD with the name of the band, because that was how I found them, because I think if you just look up Unlimited, you're probably never going to get there based on how obscure they are. But I mean, it's kind of wild that, you're 4 weeks into this, and I'm relatively certain, I think it's fair to say that the 3 of the 4 countries you've been to are countries we haven't visited on this podcast, which is interesting because, as we've talked about, Mike does keep track of the stats of the countries we've been to, and we've been to a lot of places, and but we have not been to these 3 places, and the fact that you got those right out of the gate is really interesting.
And
honestly.
I promise you, totally random. No funny business here. I'm just clicking the generate country and we're running with it.
Yeah. So check out Unlimited. Again, if you're on Spotify, I pasted the link to their Spotify playlist that has this concert on there. If there was some sort of maybe CD release, or they just ripped the audio, who knows the legitimacy of said release, but it's on there, so definitely check it out.
And that's the thing, is one of the other bands I found, they were a progressive metal band, and they had an album from 2000, and it was on YouTube Music, but man, like, the production was really rough. Like, it probably would have been cool to hear, like, a clean version of it, but man, that wasn't it. There was another band that I stumbled into that had like 5 singles, and that was it as far as what I could find. So it was a challenge.
Yeah, so, and that's going to happen, obviously, as Mike goes through the world and tries to find bands in some of these countries, which, of course, leads us to finding out where Mike's headed next, because obviously, you have been into Africa a couple of times. You have gone through, we're now into Southeast Asia. So Mike is going to pick the random country, and he spun it around so I can say, wow.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
Before you even say what it is, I want you to first see if there are any metal bands in this country, because if there are not, then we're going to have to spin again, but we will let people know.
There are 3, one of which status is unknown, and the other 2 are split up. The bands, though, we have Olympus, Relics, and my favorite, unfortunately they're split up, Shovel on the Corpse.
And the country is?
Turkmenistan.
So
Shovel on the Corpse are listed from Ashgabat, Turkmenistan early, but then they relocated to Moscow.
Okay. That makes sense. Probably.
Maybe.
I'm curious if you'll find any music from any of those bands.
Yeah, we may have to pull an audible if this is a strikeout, which with 3 options and none of them necessarily being active, That could be a challenge.
It could be. So you'll have to tune in next week, Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, when we have another episode of the Hard Rock Empire to find out whether Mike was actually able to find a band from Turkmenistan that he could find the music of. And if not, he'll pick another country and we'll pivot accordingly. But we'll see. You've definitely drawn some hard ones right out of the gate. I did not expect that. I kind of expected like the U.S. or Canada to pop up early.
Just something, even like Belgium or something.
Yeah.
Just some country that's like, okay, yeah, we've seen bands from there. That's fine. But no, hard mode has been activated clearly.
We definitely know we're not. It's not being rigged in any way because it's one thing to go hard mode, but you've gotten Uganda, Namibia, and now Turkmenistan.
And that's why, too, obviously the people listening don't know this, but I turned my laptop towards you and just clicked it so you could see that I didn't just come up with a random obscure country to make this more difficult on myself for humor value. No, that is actually what I pulled.
It is. So next week, we'll see. Can Mike find a band in Turkmenistan? And if he does, we'll talk about it next week on The Vault. I am, of course, going through The Vault Frontiers bands, and we are going through spending 2 weeks on each letter. We are up to the letter N, and the second week I let a randomizer choose a band, and I'm really excited because it was one, so often I've gotten some bands that we either have had releases of on this podcast, or they were bands that we know that are really well known. This was one I didn't know, although I know the members of the band, so I was excited to jump into it. This is a project, I guess, with Frontiers, that's what you want to call it, combined Ronnie Atkins of Pretty Maids and Eric Martinson of Eclipse/Wet. This is Nordic Union with their self-titled release. This is just a great rock album. I thought this was, of a lot of the Frontier stuff I've listened to, I thought this was probably one of the best. It's just really, really good rock. Atkins was on lead and background vocals. Martinson on lead guitar, bass, keyboards, and background vocals. And they bring in Magnus Ulfstedt on drums. It's heavier than a lot of the stuff we get from Frontiers. It's clear that Martinson is using this to show off his guitar licks, and he does, and it's impressive. Atkins' vocals take this to a totally different level. Ulfstedt's drums are obviously a great compliment to the two. Again, it's one of those ones that I don't know. Mike helping me out on the production side here. It's one of those ones that I certainly would not have found if we hadn't been doing this Frontiers thing, but I'm really excited that I did find this, and I've listened to it twice all the way through. It's really good. I definitely want to check out the other releases these guys have had. Technically, Frontiers' website is still listed as an active project, but obviously these guys have other bands, so I don't know when and if they'll get together and do something new, but I hope they do, because this was really good. Standout tracks include The War Has Begun, Wide Awake, When Death Is Calling, and Point of No Return. This is great, and again, it's just another one of those Frontiers things where they just put talented people together and they make just amazing music, and I really want to hear more from these guys. They've got 2 other albums, I think, and I'm definitely interested in checking them out.
Yeah, it's almost kind of a problem with Frontiers, and I think when you look at something like Alan Land, that had so many just sleeper hits that it bothers you in some way that more people don't know it exists.
Yeah,
and that's just one collaborative album. How many more exist out there with the kind of roster that Frontiers just pieces together to create music with? How do you know when you jump into one, hey, this one's going to have 3 just playlist mainstays for me, and I don't know it yet.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of going through all these bands with this vault, is you just finding stuff that I didn't even know was out there, and now it's this is awesome, and I want to hear more of these guys together, and obviously want to hear their stuff separately as well. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Alan Land. It's you hear that, and it's well, now I need to check out the 80 other projects that Russell Allen's working on, and Jorn Land obviously has a ton of projects.
His most recent project is Tour bus maintenance.
Yes. But yeah, this is great. Can't recommend it enough. Definitely, if you're on the fence about some of the stuff I've been doing in the vault with Frontiers bands, I encourage you to check this one out. This is just really, really awesome stuff. Next week, we jump in the letter O, and I have already got the 2 bands lined up for that O pick. Next week, we will be going deep in the mind of someone that we know very well on this podcast, Jeff Tate. We'll be talking about some work of his that he has done since leaving Queensryche. That'll be coming up next week on The Vault.
But not Operation Mindcrime 3.
Not yet. We'll, but eventually, but
Yes.
hopefully, but not yet. But we'll be talking about The Key next week on The Vault. So from the band Operation Mindcrime. That'll be coming up on our Frontiers Vault next week. But it is time to get to the Power Trio, or Hard Rock Hat Trick, where we ask a question and we answer a question. We hope you'll also answer a question, which reminds me, I need to paste the link to the Discord in the chat. This is a good place that you can go to let us know what the answers are to this question or any other question we've asked throughout the week. Join our Discord and let us know what you think the answers are, because obviously I haven't told you the question yet, but I will do that momentarily. But you can also get our stream schedule in there, which we got the month of October coming up. I mentioned it just briefly. Our schedule will be a little different when we get into mid-October. I do have one Sunday that I'm out of town for work, so we will have probably a midweek episode one of those 2 weeks. So that's a good time to join the Discord and find out exactly when and where we will be streaming. And as we bring back other podcasts, you'll find out about it first in our Discord as well. But it is time to get to the question of the week. And this is one suggested by Mike, actually, in the beginning of this month on our Discord. And again, you can also suggest questions for us on the Discord. This is the top 3 songs that you would like to hear covers of by a specific band. This is another one of those questions, and this happens a lot on this Power Trio, that there are a lot of different ways you can answer this.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes some of these questions the most interesting, because it definitely makes overlapping answers a lot harder when you can take different tacks for how you want to answer these questions. So I thought that was a really good topic. Thought it was one that would be relatively easy to come up with something that would, kind of fit this, because again, there's no wrong answers here. You can basically decide you want anything and make it happen. But don't know if we have anything from Shane this week.
We did not. Anytime that the topic is a little more...
It takes a little more work to come up with.
I think maybe sometimes that we're less likely to get that response, or
That's fair.
maybe he's just busy on a Sunday. You never know.
That's completely fair. We'll check back in with Shane here soon. But I know Chris has some answers that he posted in the Discord earlier today. So what does Chris have for his picks?
Yeah, I think his first pick, it's a band that has been covered successfully in the past, so I think that's probably a good call. But he has Beck covering Tears for Fears Head Over Heels. He loves Beck's newer pop stuff. He kind of sees him as a dark horse in the music world, which I think is a fair assessment of Beck. That guy has definitely done his own thing.
Yeah.
All while maintaining a devil's haircut. So, that's pretty cool. And I think that's part of the fun of this exercise is what is that weird kind of out there pick. And I think it would be interesting to hear Beck's take on a lot of different artists, I think.
Yeah. I probably don't appreciate him as much as I should, because the song that always comes up when I think of Beck is Loser, because it was so overplayed. Not even when it was just popular, but like for years after. It was kind of a meme song before meme songs were a thing on like TikTok. Like,
I think he had that quality though, because I feel the same way about like Where It's At. Like,
yes,
2 turntables and a microphone. I mean, that's just like
almost built for memification.
Yeah, and for people our age, that's just like if you went to the Xennial subreddit and just started just posted part of the lyrics to that song, people would just fill it in for you.
Yeah,
it's ingrained in us whether we like it or not.
That's very true. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair pick there.
And again, Tears for Fears, they're a good band to cover. I mean, think of Disturbed's cover of Shout.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
That was good. But no, good choice for pick number 1 for Chris.
I like his second pick too, because I think this is a group that I don't think we've ever really discovered how versatile they could be. And that's Duran Duran. He has them covering Boston's More Than a Feeling.
That seems reasonable. Duran Duran is I think underrated now. Probably were overrated at their peak because they weren't just popular because of their music. They had the whole like GQ looking yacht riding, wheeling dealing. It's just they had this stardom quality about them that was beyond their musical ability.
You felt like they were a group that MTV latched onto because of their appearance, but you can't argue with their hits. I mean,
yeah.
As far as greatest hits albums, Duran Duran's greatest hits, to me, is one of the top.
Have we done that question yet? The greatest hits albums?
I don't think we have, but we could.
We could do that next week. Let's see how these questions end up coming about. But that's a great point. It's we listened to that. I remember driving to Baltimore listening to that greatest hits album and singing about 3/4 of the way. It's just they were a hit machine for sure.
Absolutely, so many great songs.
So yeah, them covering Boston is an interesting concept that I would want to hear.
And I like that because I wanted to figure out a way to fit Boston into my picks because I just love Boston.
Boston's great.
I think he found a great way to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So 2 good picks to start off with.
And then his last pick I like because it's definitely taking a different direction, more of the, that'd be hilarious if they did that. He wants to see Gojira cover Blue Oyster Cult's classic Godzilla. Obviously, if you don't know, Gojira is the Japanese pronunciation for Godzilla. Surprised they never covered it.
I had to little bit. Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be shocked if it didn't come up in a live concert or something. But no, I would definitely. That would be ironic and funny, but they'd probably do a good job as well.
The funny thing about that is when I glanced over at the Discord message and saw Blue Oyster Cult, my first thought was he's gonna have Ghost cover a Blue Oyster Cult song because there's just the thought that like they're basically ripping off Blue Oyster Cult. But
Don't Fear the Reaper by Ghost.
I mean, I think that would actually be really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that's a great honorable mention that we just came up with there on the fly.
Yeah.
But no, great picks, all of them. I really enjoy those. You have picks as well. I know you were trying to really kind of nail this topic down this afternoon, so I'm curious to see what you ended up coming up with.
Yeah, I wasn't sure all the different directions I wanted to hit this from because when you're a big fan of a certain band that's had like a lot of drama, there's easy ways to like concoct, hey, this would be funny if this band covered this, or what if this band did this? But to kind of get into the background, what made me think of this idea to begin with just was like a random thought I had listening to satellite radio. The Soundgarden song Black Hole Sun came on satellite radio.
Yeah.
Lithium probably, or Turbo perhaps even. But just kind of a random moment, I thought it'd be cool if Alice in Chains covered that.
Yeah.
Like, everything about Alice in Chains to me, they're the best grunge era band out there, and I think that song would have really worked well into their style. But beyond that, we've had some really wild cover songs lately. Feuerschwann's covering Gangnam Style. Wouldn't have had that on my predictions for the year. Recently heard Ellefson Soto covering Queen's Death on Two Legs, which was amazing. So many great possibilities for cover songs and so many ways to hit it from. My number one is one that I thought of yesterday, just kind of randomly in the car coming back from the non-concert. And it was basically because the way the song is structured, I just thought, man, this would make a lot of sense in the world. And that is, the song is the Greg Kihn Band, the breakup song. I want to hear Megadeth perform it.
Yeah, because as you pointed out yesterday in the car ride, it has the structure of a Megadeth song.
When you think of like Symphony of Destruction, it's like short line riff. Greg Kihn does that, like the a cappella version of that, where he sings the first part of the verse and then he throws in the All you gotta do is replace that with a Dave Mustaine riff.
Yeah.
And then you have a Megadeth song.
Yeah, it really is true.
I don't know if it would be any good, but I just think that would actually, I mean, you think of like I said, Symphony of Destruction, Sweating Bullets, Dread and the Fugitive Mind. He had those string of songs where it was like, here's some lyrics and like a little bit of a riff. That's what that is.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and it would be, at the very least, a very interesting cover.
So for my number two, I didn't want to make this all about Megadeth, but I had like an interesting thought of where to go next. And, when you go back and listen to Metallica's Kill 'Em All, a lot of that stuff was Dave Mustaine's writing. Even some songs from albums beyond that had stuff that he had contributed to Metallica. So I thought, what if he had never left Metallica and just some of those classic Megadeth songs were somehow like Metallica songs? So with that in mind, and not with Dave Mustaine in the band, but with how we know Metallica today, or even in 1986 with Cliff Burton, I'd love to hear Metallica's take on a song like Peace Sells.
Yeah, honestly, that would be interesting. And I feel like that's still kind of one of the biggest shames about the relationship between the big four bands is, to me, if they were classic rock bands.
We never saw them do the Frontiers thing.
Yes. Like where you just have this like mega band where you just take members. Or the other thing too, you imagine them all playing on the same concert bill, and every night they cover a different song from one of the other bands, and it's just this rotation of the big four basically doing their own work.
The closest we got was when they did do the big four concerts. Usually, like at the end of the show, they would I think it was like "Am I Evil" or something. They would all kind of collaborate on and play live, but that was really about it. And that's something going back to the Megadeth story at the beginning of the show. I just wonder, when Dave's done with Megadeth, I don't know what his relationship is with the other guys, but is there room for some sort of Mustaine, Hetfield collaborative song or album? That kind of stuff would be amazing for the fans and probably cathartic for Dave.
Somewhere Serafino Perugino or whatever his name is from Frontiers is like, hey, we can make this happen. And here's Magnus Carlsen.
Have you guys met Magnus Carlsen?
Oh, yeah, I would love that. And I don't know what Dave's plans are, obviously, after he stops with Megadeth. And, but I mean, if there's an interest in it, I would love to see it happen because, again, life is too short and you just don't want to have those regrets. Just reach out and make it happen. So I would definitely be on board with that.
Yeah. So it was at this point I'm like, now what do I want to do? And then I recalled the whole Weezer Toto thing.
Yeah.
Where some sort of fan poll within Weezer, the fans voted for them to cover Africa by Toto. And when they did that, for reasons I don't really know, but I think it's awesome, Toto was like, okay, cool, we're going to cover Hash Pipe.
Yeah.
Why don't more bands do that? If you cover a song by a band, they should feel inclined to return the favor and cover one of your songs. I think that should be a cultural norm in our hard rock community at this point. With that in mind, a band that's had a bunch of just great cover songs is Disturbed, like I mentioned earlier. Probably one of my favorite would be Land of Confusion. I think they did a great job on that. So you could do this with any Disturbed song. I picked Prayer because it's one of my favorites, but I want to see that covered by the Phil Collins era of Genesis.
That's such an interesting idea, honestly. And Prayer would be one they probably could do.
Yeah.
That wouldn't feel like outside the box of what would be possible by that band, but
I try to hear it in my head with more of that synthy sound that the original Land of Confusion had, and I think that could actually work.
I would listen to that probably. Yeah. And I guess with AI now, you could probably tell it to create that and see what it sounded like, because that stuff's probably out there. But
yeah, probably.
But no, that's really interesting, and I think that would make for a really, really interesting song for sure.
Well, that could almost spawn its own power trio topic. We know of all these great cover songs throughout the year or throughout the history of music. You have to pick the reciprocal of that.
Yeah.
Well,
we'll put that on the list too. We probably should be writing these down as we're coming up with them live, but we have the greatest hits albums and reciprocal cover song topics.
Yeah,
so,
I think those would work.
Yeah, for sure. Great choices, as always. I went at this from 3 different directions, and one of them I actually stole from you, and we'll save that one for last. You may or may not remember this conversation, but I did, and I definitely want to go with it. Let's go with the... I wanted to pick a band that we talked about on this podcast because we cover so many great AOR-type bands that do music from the 80s. So I want to hear Nestor do Ask the Lonely.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that's a classic song. Some of those classic Journey songs, you got bands like Nestor that they do that sound so well. I want to hear them. I want to hear them cover that.
Yeah, I think that would work well. I mean, any Journey song, but that one in particular feels heavier than some of the others while still being classic Journey.
Yeah, there's so much of that stuff that inspired clearly the sound that we hear from a lot of these AOR type bands. So I thought that was a no-brainer. Then I picked an existing band covering a classic song. I want to hear Extreme cover Seven Bridges Road. Yeah. Extreme is maybe one of the best, have the best harmonies of any, hair metal, whatever their genre is of metal. To hear them do an ultimate harmony song like Seven Bridges Road, which is probably one of my all-time favorite Eagles songs, I would love to hear that.
The funny thing about that is you mentioned that, and while I was trying to come up with ideas, one of the things that popped into my head was, could Firehouse cover a different Eagles song? Because they have a cover of that, which is a really good cover.
It is.
But I didn't get very far with that. But that did enter my mind. But yeah, I like this idea, though.
Yeah. And then the third one I stole from you, but I thought it was a great idea, is one I can't remember we discussed it on the way back or when we discussed it, but it definitely came up. I want to hear Chicago from 1975 cover Along Comes a Woman from 1985. Obviously, before 1975, Terry Kath was still in the band. He hadn't passed away yet. Obviously, a big horn sound in that era of Chicago. They pivoted in the 80s, as most people know, to, basically an AOR sound.
As a lot of artists did.
As a lot of artists did. And if you listen to Along Comes a Woman, there's a lot of sounds in that song that you would think are horn sounds. My guess is they're not. They're actually synth sounds. But what if we took that song and we transported it back to 1975 before the synthesizer became a thing, and you had them play that song? And again, you still have Peter Cetera in the band, so he could still sing it, but now you have everything else that Chicago was doing in 1975. What would that sound like? That, to me, would be interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing that when the topic came up originally, I thought, there's a middle ground somewhere. Chicago didn't have to lean so heavily away from the horns. Huey Lewis was still doing horns in the 80s.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it was just because Chicago was so known for the horns that they felt like they had to kind of abandon them for a little bit. And again, those songs were huge hits. So who am I to say that they made the wrong choice?
And that kind of music was just blowing up so much, that soft rock stuff that they ended up getting into, and then Peter Cetera had a bunch of solo success with as well.
Yeah, again, I don't blame them one bit, but I would love to know, if you could just take that hit song and drop it back 10 years, how they would approach it, what it would sound like. It would be really interesting. To me, I thought it'd be interesting.
I almost had a similar pick to that, kind of in theme. I'm a big fan of the self-titled Motley Crue album.
Yeah.
With John Corabi on vocals, but I thought it'd be kind of neat if they actually had Vince Neil sing something like Hooligan's Holiday, what that would have sounded like.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to sound like I was endorsing Vince Neil over John Corabi. It's really just a matter of how could that have turned out.
I think it's very much along the lines of the conversation we've had before, is what happens if David Lee Roth doesn't leave Van Halen, because as we've talked about, Van Halen was headed toward the music that they ended up doing.
1984 had a lot of keys.
It was headed toward where Sammy Hagar ended up taking the band, but would they have gotten there anyway if David Lee Roth doesn't leave the band, and they would have maybe still had a lot of the same hits or sounding hits they ended up having?
It's a great question.
So there's lots of stuff like that.
A lot of what ifs.
A lot of, this band changed the lead singer, or they've changed their style completely. So, yeah, I did kind of bend time and space to come up with that last one. But I think there are some interesting what-ifs when you look at bands that, especially ones that have been around for so long.
It just makes you wonder, because I'm sure there are any number of Chicago tribute bands out there, are there bands that are just no, we only do 70s? We don't touch.
Oh, that's entirely possible.
Or the other way around.
I would guess if you look at a set list from Chicago, that obviously, because they're still out there, I would guess it's very heavy 70s.
Yeah.
I would guess they probably do.
That's a tough one, because, man, I'm thinking they're probably getting a lot of fans showing up at their show who definitely love You're the Inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. They had a lot of great stuff in that era, for sure. But like I said, I would love to see the throwback there. But great stuff. Again, join the Discord. Tell us what your picks are and give us some more ideas for the Power Trio. We would definitely love to hear where your mind is as far as your favorite 3 cover songs you want to hear by specific bands. Interesting stuff this week. That is going to wrap things up on this edition of the Hard Rock Empire. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, another great episode, more great music. Support all these bands. Go see them live. I hope their tour bus doesn't break down as you go see them live. But really good stuff out there. Next week, we'll be back with another episode of the Hard Rock Empire, 7 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday. The music of September the 12th will be on the list for episode 85 of the Hard Rock Empire. As always, a big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. A big thanks to Mike for putting all this together. Big thanks to Stoveleg Media for their continued support of this podcast. And a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are checking us out. Join us again next Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.